Hi, and welcome back to Catastrophic Comeback. I'm talking to you now about the three takeaways that I had from my conversation with substance abuse therapist and counselor BK. Um, the first thing that I thought was really fascinating about what she said was when I asked her about, in this time, in this day and age, how does someone get addicted? It's not, we walk through the streets and we see people with addiction problems, and who voluntarily puts heroin, meth, crack into their bodies in this time when you see the devastation and destruction it causes? Under what circumstances does a rational, normal person make the decision to do that? And so she talked about two basic scenarios where this thing happens. One is childhood trauma, and the other is family history. Family history. So she talks about two different scenarios where this happens. One is really applicable to, I think, the people that might be listening to this, maybe both. But the first is a scenario where a person has some kind of accident. She talked about the high school quarterback. For our purposes, maybe an accident, maybe an injury at work or on the road or in a fall or a burn or something. But then they have a very serious injury that produces a lot of pain, and they have to take medication for pain management. And then over time, that tolerance builds, and the effectiveness, the efficacy of that medication subsides. And so then people have to take more in order to be able to have the same effect or the same result, or to be able to take their pain away. And then ultimately, the doctors withdraw that prescription because, they don't want you to be prescribed this medication forever. And what that does is puts people in a situation where they are dependent. She said that 1 in 4 people who are prescribed pain medication become dependent on that medication. So then what do people do then? So they have to go out and buy it on the street or find some other way to get it. And they borrow it from friends first, and then ultimately they might buy it on the street. And it's expensive, and so ultimately that drives people into a position where they can buy these pills for this much money or some other type of drug for a lot less. And so that's how people get hooked a lot of times on some of these other medicines as a result of first being introduced to pain medications legally and under the prescription of a doctor. The other thing she said was that there are two things that exacerbate those types of conditions and make a person much more susceptible to being addicted, and that is childhood trauma and family history. And she said family history makes someone 8 times more likely to become addicted. But she also intimated that it's not just people that have a family history or childhood trauma, that anybody can become addicted, especially under those circumstances. So the second takeaway that I had from my conversation with BK that I thought was really interesting was when do you know you have a problem? So if you'll remember, I asked her, if you have to ask if you have a problem, do you have a problem? And then I said, or is that the definitive line, or is there another line? Is that line when it starts causing problems with my work, my family, my job, and those types of things? And she said either. She said either of those things might let you know you have a problem, and that makes sense to me. The third thing that I thought was fascinating about what she said was, okay, if you do have a problem, what do you do about it? What are the steps that you can take to try to address that problem? Because maybe you're having a moment of strength now, but what do you do with that? Because that moment of strength may not last for very long, And so she said you can make an appointment with a substance abuse therapist like her, and if you come to a community center that has that as an option, you may be able to see somebody immediately, But if for whatever reason you can't, and there is some type of delay, she said there are lots of resources that are available to people. You can look on your phone, you can Google, you can ask someone, but probably a Google search or a phone search might be the best way to do it. And just to type in, I have a problem with substance abuse, and I am worried about how it's impacting me and my family, and I need help now. And then you can find therapists. You can find groups. She really seemed to think that the groups had a great deal of value in helping you get through all kinds of different situations, because you can connect with other people who have been through this, been through these types of situations, no judgment, and a situation where they can talk to you and help you and share their resources and what's been successful for them. And they're also proven programs that can help people overcome these types of addictions. The other thing I thought that was interesting about what she said in relation to this is that it's not just drugs. Alcohol can be every bit as destructive as any of these other substances, and I can attest to that in some of the things that I've seen in my life, and that it can be, especially if you have maybe a mental health injury that results from a physical injury, and how some people self-medicate with that with alcohol. And so if you do recognize that you have a substance use problem, whether it's one of these drugs or whether it's alcohol, there are things you can do. And the first step, I think, is doing a search and following through on becoming involved in a group as quickly as you can, and then seeking out the help of a professional. Thank you for joining us.